Hello, Hollywood Times listener. Judy Shields here. Today we welcome Nashville Songwriter Hall of Famer Kent Blazy. Hey, Kent.
How you doing?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Yeah, I like that word.
It's a good word, isn't it?
Well, it shows in your melodious voice.
Aw. Well, we love your voice. You got a good one. That is for sure.
Well, thank you. I have fun using it.
Well, we haven't talked for a while, so we got some catching up to do.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, there's like this new album, huh?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. From the Beatles to the Bluebird. And it all started when I was in Liverpool, England last year. And the Beatles had the statues on the dock. And I wanted to get a picture with them. And I was wearing a Bluebird sweatshirt because it was cold over there. And somebody took a picture, and I saw that picture, and I thought, well, that's a great album title. I didn't have any songs, but I started working on it. Percussions of that first night of Ed Sullivan Show, February 9th, 1964, still echoes to me throughout the universe. And then the Bluebird is so important because that's how Garth got his record deal with If Tomorrow Never Comes that we'd written when he'd been turned down by every label. And so that just looked like a good title for me, From the Beatles to the Bluebird. And I'm happy the way it turned out and excited to be talking about it.
Yeah, that's my big thing about songwriters and performers when they come out with their new CDs, albums, EPs, whatever they call them these days. It's always about the songs and who wrote them and all about the title. So, if you have time, can we talk about the 11 songs on the upcoming album?
I would love to.
Okay, well, let's start out with song number one. This is how I have it written down. February 9th, 1964. What's that
So
one?
that was the first night that the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show. And more people watched TV that night than ever had before, and the crime rate in America dropped during that period of time. And people were so depressed because Kennedy had been shot in November, and everybody was walking around in a daze like they were after 9/11. And the Beatles came along, and it was nothing like anybody had seen before, but they also had a joy in their music and a happiness that America was definitely needing at that time. And to me, that just started a whole revolution of music and clothes and lifestyles and everything else due to that single night in 64.
Well, I'll be darned. I was 4 years old back then.
Well, I wasn't much older, but I remember all that stuff.
Yeah, that's something. Oh, so the second one is Beatles to the Bluebird Cafe. You spoke about that one, so we'll skip over to that. To the next one is Just Writing Songs.
Well, I look back on Garth and I and so many of the other people that we were writing with at that time, and there wasn't anything really big happening much in country music at that time. And so every day we would just get together and we would write songs and we would pitch them and hope somebody would cut them. And, I never dreamed when I was writing If Tomorrow Never Comes with somebody who's cleaning churches and selling boots that in 2 years he would be Garth Brooks. And it was probably like being around the Beatles when the Beatles started. They were doing really crappy shows in Germany and stuff like that. And all of a sudden they get discovered and they become the Beatles. And pretty wild to me that there's a correlation between those two. And so I just wanted to write a thing saying we were just writing songs. We didn't really expect anything big to happen, but we were going to write them one way or the other. And look what happened.
Right? That's why I love asking about, the songs, the titles, because it's important, where did that come from? And we appreciate you sharing that. Number four is Die Young.
So Paul McCartney is such an inspiration to me. He's 84 years old and he still plays 3 hours a night and he still sings in the same keys that the Beatles sang in. Bob Dylan's still out on the road. He's a big influence. Roger McGuinn from the Byrds, he's 80 something and he's putting out a new record. The Rolling Stones are putting out a new record. Mick Jagger's 80. And it just is an inspiration to keep going and do what you want to do and have fun doing it, because the music business kind of wants you to think you're over when you're in your 40s. And they're showing them it doesn't have to be that way, that we can all be out there still performing and singing and having fun. And so thank you, McCartney, for giving me that idea.
Wow, thank you for sure. Next is Birds on a High Line.
So Garth introduced me to, he called him a kid when he introduced me to a great songwriter by the name of Kim Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And he and Garth had been writing together for a while, and Garth called me up one day and said, hey, I played one of our songs that we wrote for somebody else and he hated it. Do you want to write with him? And I thought, why do I want to get together and write with somebody that hates my song? And he said, well, he thought there was one line in there that could be turned into a title if you wanted to write with him. And I said, well, sure, okay, let's do it. And so Kim Williams had been burned over 90% of his body and gone through 100 operations. He was in a chemical fire in Chicago. He was in a safe room that exploded. And it took him a year, 2 years to recover, which he never really did. But he figured God was telling him he needed to be a songwriter. So he moved to Nashville. And so that's how I met Kim. And Kim passed away about 6 years ago. And his big song with Garth, or one of them, other than Papa Love Mama and the stuff we wrote, was New Way to Fly. And so I wanted to write a song for Kim. And I was down in Texas doing some shows, and there's a lot of empty space in Texas, and there's always birds sitting on a high line. And it made me think that's the first line of the song in New Way to Fly. And I thought, I'm going to write a song about Kim Williams. So I had a day off. Also, Oklahoma, doing a thing at Leon Russell's studio. And the song moved her so much, she flew from Knoxville, Tennessee to Tulsa to tell me how much she liked that song. So that meant a lot to me.
Wow, well, that's really true, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great story. Your next one is like over 5 minutes, which is always cool. Stay Wild.
Well, there's so many people that it's going back to that thing again about you're too old to do this or you're too old to do that. I just saw where a woman 104 years old just took her first skydive.
Oh, wow.
I think fabulous, and another one who I think just turned 100 ran her first marathon. And there's so many people I know that people are saying, well, they're over the hill, they're too old to do this, they're too old to do that. And if you buy into that, then you're too old to do it. And so for me, it was just a message to some friends of mine and also to myself that we don't have to buy into what they say about you're over the hill, you're done with, you're too old or whatever. We just kind of have to keep reinventing ourselves and do it the way we want to do it. And so that's kind of why it's, to me, an anthem for some friends of mine who are going through some crazy times when you're 45 years old and they tell you you're too old for the music business. So it's like, don't buy into that. Keep going.
Yeah, amen to that. That definitely is an anthem song for sure. Let's see. Next one is Young Man Living in an Old Man's Town.
Yeah, I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, and if you told somebody you wanted to be a songwriter or a musician, they were going to lock you up, because there was nothing like that at the time. And so I guess I was iconoclast, pushing the envelope as far as what could be possible in Lexington, Kentucky. I was writing songs and playing in bands, and I moved to Nashville, and it was kind of the same way. At the time, there were all these people like Chet Atkins and the Bradleys who had been ensconced in the Nashville music business for a long time, and things were starting to change. And so I felt like I was a young man in Nashville, Tennessee, trying to change things a little bit by the kind of music that I was doing. And now, 40 years later, I'm on the other end of it. And so it's just kind of a song about coming here and what it was like. And then I see the young people doing the same thing I did in their own way, and trying to change things to make it the way they want it to be. And it's, there's no wrong or right to it. That's just the way things evolve. And so I just wanted to write it for, once again, friends of mine who are struggling in the music business and other things that they do, and let them know, hey, you can keep doing it.
Well, you're their hero, aren't you?
Well, Paul McCartney's my hero, so there you go.
So there you go. That's a great hero to have. I do this thing called seat fillers, where you actually, fill the seats when stars get up at all these award shows. And I happen to be I do the Grammys a lot, and this was years ago. I happen to be at the right spot at the right time, because you're not going to believe it. Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr walks in and started shaking her hands and talking to us. I almost died. That was that was so fabulous. I'll never forget that.
Well, that's a once in a lifetime thing,
Oh, it is, right? Oh.
Have two Beatles in the room at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And shaking your hand and saying hello and thank you. Wow. They were amazing.
Wow, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness. Okay, next up is Not Really Living.
Yeah, you see so many people that just go through life and they don't realize there's those other options to pick from. Like when I would tell people that I was going to be a songwriter and a musician, they're like, well, what's your real job? And, well, that's my real job. I practice during the day, I play at night, and it was hard for them to comprehend in Kentucky. But it's one of those things of you gotta be fabulous every day. You gotta choose to find the fun in this life and to be creative. And you don't have to just buy into that. You get up and go to work every day and go home and sit in front of the TV. And that's kind of what I think that song's about to me.
Yeah, so there's another great one out there, folks. You got to give it a listen. Pay attention. Get off that couch.
I hope it'd be an inspiration for some people, that I know my mom just quit her job 30-something years because she wanted to do something different. And you talk about it being a big step for somebody. It really was for her. But she's like, I got to get out here and do some things that I want to do and not feel like I'm a slave to these people that I've been working for 30 years who don't appreciate what I do. So she just quit yesterday, and we took her out to dinner last night to celebrate. And, maybe that song had a little something to do with it.
Oh, she's my hero.
Yeah, I know.
Way to go, girl.
Really proud. We've been working on her for 10 years to take a look at it, and she finally did, and thought, there's more to life than what I'm doing right now. So good for her.
Yes, good for you for writing that song.
Well, and you just have to present people with something that makes them think, well, maybe I have another option than what I've been thinking about before. And if that's what it does, and it helps them pursue something else that they maybe always wanted to do, then more power to them. There's a lot of people back in Lexington, Kentucky, more talented than I am, but they didn't take the chance to move to Nashville, Tennessee, and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And a couple of them say, boy, I wish I'd moved down there when you moved down there, but they for whatever reason didn't do it. So it's an interesting thing to hear them say that.
Yep, that is definitely a good one. We'll push that one for sure. They're all great, but that's really great. Next up is Love to Love You.
So my wife and I were dating each other, and she had been living in St. Louis when I was in Nashville, and so she was working over there doing some consulting, and we both knew, because I'd known her for a long time, we both knew that we were never going to get married again. And so that was the conversation when we first started dating. Well, I went over to visit her. It was on my birthday weekend in St. Louis, and we went for a walk, and the subject turned to, well, maybe we ought to get married. And so 2 hours later, we've been walking through St. Louis for all this time, and she goes, do you know where we are? And I said, I don't live here. I don't know anywhere where I am. And she said, well, I don't know where I am either. So we'd walked so far that she had just got turned around on where she was, and she said, "We cross any major roads?" And I said, "Yeah, we did." She said, "Okay, I kind of know how to get back." But it was just a funny thing of uh, finally laying it out on the line that you wanted to be with somebody the rest of your life. And what was cool was when we were in recording the record, this engineer who was the second engineer on the project, and he had real long hair. He was probably in his mid-20s and had a Woodstock T-shirt on and the whole bit. And when that song came on and they were mixing it, he goes, "That sounds like a Beatles song off their record." And I thought, well, that's pretty cool if this kid who's 25 years old is telling me it's like a Beatles song on a record, because it's so different from the rest of the songs on the record. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, that he hears the difference in that from the way the rest of the record was going. And John Party's bass player did such a great job playing a fretless bass solo, which I don't think anybody does much these days.
Right.
But it really stands out because it's different and it fits the tune. So I love that song.
Yeah, it's a good one. It is a good one. Next one is The Gift She Is. Oh.
Well, that's another one about my wife,
Yeah.
and she's just such an inspiration for me every day. She just finds the joy in everything. And so it was just a song for her on all that she's done for me since we've been together. And every day I tell her she's a gift for being in my life. And I like telling people how I feel about them.
That's good. You got that great heart. Okay, the last one here is Deeper Into You. Great title.
That's we kind of talked about that before, but we had a start on the song, and Steve Allen and I went over to do a gig in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Leon Russell's, and we ended up recording that song there, and they have a great studio, great engineers. And then we came back here and had the guys that were doing the record mix it to blend in with the rest of it, and just kind of got a Beatle feel to it in a roundabout way too, really acoustic and kind of a change from the rest of the record. So I like sticking things on that are really different because, I grew up listening to people like Buffalo Springfield or the Byrds or something, and they could kind of do anything, and that was cool at the time. And now it's gotten to be, well, is this country or is it Americana or is it rock? And I don't have any labels. I just write what I write, and wherever it is whatever it is. And that's a freedom that's really fun. And I think that song shows that it's just a little different from anything else on the record.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to put this album together?
Well, when I came back from Liverpool, I immediately started writing the record, and I had set up a recording session to go in and do it at Garth's studio, and we were going to go in the end of the March, I think it was. And so I was flying back from a gig in Santa Fe, and I got a call from his engineer that he wanted to be in the studio the time that we were supposed to be in the studio. And so it's his studio, so he can do what he wants to do.
Yes.
And so I immediately set up another session at my favorite studio there, which is Sound Emporium, that's been around a long time and done all kind of artist things. And so I've got John Party's drummer and bass player that play with me, and then Steve Allen, and we went in and we wanted to cut it like the Beatles cut their first album, where it was all of us in one room. I sang and played guitar at the same time, and we cut 10 tracks in one day.
Wow.
But
wow.
These guys are so great that that's what we did. Then we did some overdubs the next day. I put some lead guitars on things or whatever. But other than that, we just nailed it that quick. And we just had fun doing it. Every time I go in and record with these guys, I just say, just let's make it fun. Whatever else happens is fine, but let's make it fun. And they do. And they just are so great that they can do 10 songs in one day. I think they did that on the Byrds record too. So,
wow.
Fun guys to work with, and they always play with so much heart and feeling that it just makes it so easy for me to be playing and singing, because I know they're covering all the other stuff that I need to have covered.
Yeah, let's talk about who were the musicians. I always like to know who they are, you know?
Well, the drummer is Kevin Murphy.
Okay.
The other guy who plays bass for John Party is Lee Francis, and I've known him a long time. And my bass player that I had used for 10 years that I'd known back in Kentucky, Lee studied under him. So they have a lot of kind of the same style, and I like that. And I also like having a drummer and bass player who play together all the time.
Yeah.
And so having those two being John Party's band, they're always playing together, and it makes it such a tight thing. And then Steve Allen is an amazing guitar player. He grew up in Tulsa, and his guitar teacher was Hubert Shamblin, who was the guitar player for Bob Wills. So how great to have a teacher like that when you're starting out. And he ended up being in a big pop band called 2020 in the 80s and was on Dick Clark and all kind of other things. I call him my brother from another mother because the way he plays and the way I play, we come from kind of the same background where we can communicate without communicating, kind of like Keith Richards and Ronnie Woods, you know, and that makes it a fun thing. He just knows what to play. What I try to do is have them come over to the house and run the songs down one time before we go into the studio. I basically tell them, you guys do whatever you want to do because I can trust them like that, and they always do an amazing job. And it, you know, most of my favorite records from the 60s and 70s were like that, where everybody was kind of recording in the same room at the energy, overdubbing, or one by somebody sending one track in and then the drummer sends another track in, and so they just make it so easy and so much fun that and the cool thing was the very first time I worked with the drummer, Kevin Murphy, he said, I want to see all the lyrics. I want to read all the lyrics to these songs so I know what to play on every song. And I had never had a drummer say that to me before. And I thought, that's how close he's listening to the music. He wants to play the drums to fit whatever the song is. And he's so great at that. And so you just turn it over to him and you know he's going to guide the whole thing and it's going to sound great.
Oh, wow. Did you have a keyboard player too?
I have Dennis Mikowski's a dear friend of mine, and he has his own studio. So after I cut the tracks, I send him tracks that I think need a little keyboard on. So I think he played keyboards on 4 of the songs on the record, and I think he played on everyone on the For the Birds record.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's the same way. He wrote Maniac, that was a big hit. He's written a lot of country hits, but he's a great B3 player. That's his big claim to fame. And he's another guy you don't have to tell what to do. He just knows what to do. And he always does a fabulous part on anything I ask him to play on. So I'm not wasting his time by being in the studio. I just send him the tracks and he does amazing work to them.
Wow. You got an amazing band going there. It's all
Yes,
sounded
I
great.
do. I'm lucky.
Very lucky. Yeah. So all of our listeners can find this new album on all digital music platforms, I'm assuming, right? Streaming, download?
That's correct. And, you know, if anybody wants a hard copy CD, they can email me at kentblazy.com and I can send them one. And if they want it autographed or whatever, because some people still want CDs, you know.
That's me. I like the Jewel.
Well, I do too, you know.
I love him.
Just,
I'm glad you have that to offer.
you know, listening on tiny little speakers. So
Hmm.
I'm still a CD guy, you know.
I still like my
But
vinyl too.
Well, I like my vinyl, and you know, kids are buying CDs again, and they're not listening to them, but they want to hold them and see who played on them and look at the cover
Yeah.
and all the things that we always used to do. That's now missing with uh, streaming, you know. And I just thought that was really cool. I thought it was funny that they were buying them but not listening to them, but at least they're buying them.
Yep, that's true. That's truly.
That's
But
how I was growing up, and you probably did the same thing. But and who wrote the songs and all that kind of stuff. And you really can't find that out as easy these days. Say there's a big hit song and you want to find out who wrote it. It's really hard to find out who wrote it through Google. It's all about the artist that did it, and that was the fun part of having a CD or an album cover where you could look and see who played on it, who sang on it, who wrote it, and did all those kind of things.
Yep, that's exactly true. It's nothing like getting the jewel and then taking it out carefully so you could read, especially when they had like little pamphlets inside. Wasn't that great too?
Oh yeah, that was.
And the words to the songs even was, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, in heaven.
And now we have none of that. So
I miss it.
I
They,
guess
yeah.
if you've never had it, you don't know what you're missing. But some of these kids are figuring out, well, that was kind of cool being able to read the lyrics and see the cover and see who played on it. So more power to them.
Yep. Well, some of our listeners who may not know too much about you, let's talk about like when you wrote your first song and you found your voice, how old you were.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I started writing my own songs when I got the guitar because I didn't know anybody's, like I said, and just kind of kept pursuing it. And I kind of go with the thing that Bob Seger told Glenn Fry in the Eagles documentary. Glenn came and played him some songs, and he said to Glenn, well, go out and write 100 more that are crap like that one, and then come back and see me. And I think that was the thing for me too. The first songs that I wrote, I don't think I'd show them to anybody anymore, but I just kept writing them and kept writing them, and then bands I was in wanted to play my songs, or other people in Lexington who heard those songs wanted to play them with their band, and so it kind of took off from there. And if you've got somebody else who didn't even write the song wanting to record your song, you think, well, I must have something going on here. So that's kind of how I just kept pursuing it, and still out there pursuing it.
Yeah, and I just love that, this album is all the songs that you've written, and you had a couple co-written. That's really cool.
Well, I love writing by myself, and in Nashville, you're supposed to write with other people all the time, and I've done my share of that for a long period of time. Sometimes you would write 2 or 3 times a day with different people, but all that time you're just hopefully getting better at writing songs, and the more people that you write with, you see how they approach a song, how they approach a title or music or whatever, and so the next time you're by yourself, you can say, well, how would so-and-so do this, and it kind of helps broaden you as a writer by the other writers that you write with.
Yeah, I'm just, Ken Burns, he's a famous documentary.
The country music one.
Yes, I love that guy, and he's got actually another one coming out called American Buffalo, PBS. But I'm gonna reach out to him because I actually have his email and tell him he needs to do a documentary on songwriters. We have all this music that he's done, but it's like, it's like go out and start talking to all these songwriters, and because without you guys, we pretty much don't have our songs for the musicians to play.
I would appreciate it if you do that, because like I said earlier, a lot of people used to think, maybe not as much now, that the people who sang the songs wrote the songs.
And not always, right? Yeah.
Not always.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, look at George Strait. George Strait had all those #1 hits, 60, and never wrote a song. But yet he's doing it now. But imagine all those hits, and he didn't write a single one, and you wouldn't even known it.
I know, and Dean Dillon did pretty good through George Strait.
Oh yeah, and so now you know who he is, but we didn't before.
It was that kind of thing that we really had to fight in the '80s to even get our names on the albums that we had written songs, because country music didn't do that at all. And finally, when we won and they started putting that on there, it was about 3 years before they quit making CDs, and so now we're back to nobody knows who did what, and it's pretty funny to me, but that's the way it goes.
Well, I know you're out promoting this, and it's been out, and I'll go ahead and put the links out there. What else are you working on too, or coming up for the holidays for you?
Well, I've got a tour through Texas that I'm doing in November. I'm really looking forward to
nice.
different things, and I love playing down there. So that's the main thing I'm doing. Then our daughter's expecting a baby in early December, so I think we'll just be sticking around here for that, and then hit the road again.
Congratulations! You're gonna...
Yeah, and we'll see what happens out of that. And then I'm also already working on a new record, so just compiling some ideas and things like that for during the downtime. I can start working on them again, have another record out.
Yay! Well, we'll look forward to that, and we'll keep in touch with you so we can help get that out there as well.
Well, I'm hoping that somehow or other I can get February 9th, 1964 with somebody involved with the Beatles, because that could be the theme song for the 60th anniversary, which is coming up next year.
Oh, wow. There you go. Gotta find out how to make that happen.
Well, I have a friend who's kind of a big mucky muck here in Nashville, and he's friends with the guy who runs Apple.
Oh, boy.
So he's going to send him a copy of it and see what he. So keep your fingers crossed for me.
All right, I'll keep both of my fingers and my legs and eyes and everything crossed.
I love it. That's really good luck. That's fabulous.
Might hit a couple walls, but I'll still cross them.
Well, as long as you're not playing guitar and trying to do that.
That's a good one. Well, we'll go ahead and put this up for you, and it's HollywoodTimes.today, and our YouTube channel is Hollywood Times Original, and we will put that up there too, so people can listen to our conversation. And we're so glad for you to have taken the time to talk with us here at the Hollywood Times today about this great album, From the Beatles to the Bluebird. Wow, isn't that something?
Thank you, and I thank you taking the time to talk to me. It works both ways,
Yes, it sure does, and we will keep in touch. We'll put all your social media links on the article so our listeners and viewers can get that from you.
Thanks, and let's have it not be so long between talking next time.
I know what happened. It's like, what? There's Kent. Where's he been? Traveling the world.
Things got so weird during COVID,
Yes.
It's like time got nebulous.
Yeah.
It's like, when exactly was that,
I know.
So it's good to be getting back again, and people are so happy to be hearing live music again, and musicians are so happy to be playing it that
Yeah.
it's a fun time.
Exactly. So we're glad everybody's back and live, and you're touring, and we will definitely keep in touch with you.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you so much.
Sure, no problem.